Hi everyone, today I will introduce the topic of consumer behavior. Consumer behavior is how people make decisions when buying goods and services. Since consumers have limited income but unlimited wants, they need to spend their money wisely to get the greatest satisfaction or utility. Their purchasing decisions are mainly influenced by three factors: price, income, and personal preferences. Understanding consumer behavior is important because it helps consumers make better choice, help business predict customer demand and set price, and help government plan policies such as tax and subsidies.
Today we will be explaining utility analysis. Utility is the satisfaction gained from consuming goods or services. There are two types of utility: total utility (TU), which is the overall satisfaction from all units consumed, and marginal utility (MU), which is the additional satisfaction from consuming one more unit. Okay, next. So total utility is the total satisfaction a consumer gets, while marginal utility is the extra satisfaction from one additional unit. Total utility usually increases as consumption increases, while marginal utility usually decreases. The formula for marginal utility is MU equals change in total utility. This example, total utility increases from 0 to 75 as more cups of coffee are consumed. However, the marginal utility decreases from 25 to -2. This shows the law of diminishing marginal utility, where each additional cup gives less satisfaction, and consuming too much can even reduce satisfaction.
Next, I will explain the law of diminishing marginal utility. This law means that the more we consume the same product, the less satisfaction we get from each additional unit. Usually, the first unit gives us the highest satisfaction because that's when we want it the most. After that, each extra unit becomes less satisfying and eventually we might not enjoy it anymore. For example, 1 cup of bubble tea. Imagine you're really craving for bubble tea. The first cup feels amazing and gives you the most satisfaction. The second and the third cup are still enjoyable but not as much as the first one. By the fourth cup, you may only enjoy it a little. And if you drink fifth cup, you might even feel uncomfortable. This clearly shows that marginal utility decreases as we consume more and more of the same product. Now, let's move on to consumer equilibrium. This is the point where a consumer gets the maximum satisfaction from their limited income. To achieve this, consumers should spend their money in a way that gives the same satisfaction for every ringgit spent on different goods. This is represented by the formula MUX over PX equals to MUY over PY. Let's look at this example. A burger has a marginal utility of 40 and costs RM10, so its marginal utility per ringgit is 4. Bubble tea has a marginal utility of 30 and costs only RM5, so its marginal utility per ringgit is 6. Since bubble tea gives more satisfaction for every ringgit spent, consumers will choose to buy bubble tea first. As they continue buying it, its marginal utility will gradually decrease. Consumer equilibrium is reached when the marginal utility per ringgit is equal for both products.
I'll explain the microeconomics analysis. Consumer purchasing decisions in Malaysia are influenced by several factors, including price, quality, durability, online reviews, and personal preferences. Before buying a product, consumers compare these factors to get the best value for their money. The main goal is to choose products that provide the highest satisfactions while staying within their budget.
So hi everyone, my name is Sofia Nolaila binti Ajmi. I'm from the class JBA1112E for ECO162. So today, I will explain the examples of consumers' choice during inflation or when faced with substitute products. So let's first understand what inflation is. So inflation is a situation where general prices of goods and services increase over time. When price of goods increase but people's income stays the same, their purchasing power decreases. So this means that the same amount of money can buy fewer items than before. So because of this, consumers become more careful with their spending. They are focused on buying essential items and reduce spending on things that are less important. This behavior is known as utility maximization, where consumers truly get the greatest satisfaction while staying within their budget. Now let's look at the example of the support. In Malaysia, chicken is one of the main sources of protein and is commonly used in many dishes. However, during inflation, the price of chicken increases. For example, a family that normally buys 5 kilograms of chicken every week may have to reduce their purchase to only 3 kilograms because they need to control their monthly expenses. So, the money they save can be used to buy other necessities such as rice, vegetables, and cooking oil. And this shows that consumers adjust to their spending to meet their basic needs. Next, let's take a look at table 2.2. The table shows the relationship between the price of chicken and the quantity demanded. Price is RM12 ringgit per kilogram. The consumer demand is 5 kilograms per week. And then, when the price increases to 15 ringgit per kilogram, the quantity demanded falls to 4 kilograms. Finally, when the price reaches 18 ringgit per kilogram, the quantity demanded decreases further to 3 kilograms. From this table, we can clearly see that as the price increases, quantity demand decreases. This follows the law of demand, which states that when the price of a product rises, consumer will buy less of it, assuming all other factors remains the same, or ceteris paribus. Move to the figure 2.2, which is the demand curve. The graph has price on the vertical axis and the quantity demanded on the horizontal axis. The demand curve slopes downward from left to right. This downward sloping curve shows the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. 3 points on the graph represent the data from the table, which is at 12 ringgit, quantity demanded is at 5 kilograms. 15 ringgit, quantity demanded is 4 kilograms. And at 18 ringgit, quantity demanded is 3 kilograms. As we move upward along the demand curve, the price increases while the quantity demanded decreases. And again, this proves the law of demand. So, during inflation, consumers also look for substitute products. Instead of buying expensive chickens, they may choose cheaper alternatives such as fish, eggs, or tofu, similar protein, but still maximize the satisfaction. By switching to substitute products, consumers can reduce their expenses while still meeting their nutritional needs. This is another example of utility maximization, where consumers make the best possible choice based on their limited income. In conclusion, inflation causes price to increase and reduce consumers' purchasing power. As a result, consumers buy smaller quantity of expensive goods or switch to substitute products. The table and demand curve clearly demonstrate the law of demand, which states that when the price of a product increases, the quantity demanded decreases. Ceteris paribus. Thank you for listening.
Hi everyone, my name is Laila Hana binti Saimi and I'm from JBA1112E. So, before we end our presentation, I would like to say thank you to my group members for explaining the topic in detail. Now, I would like to conclude our presentation by summarizing the main points. Actually, consumer behavior helps us to understand how people make purchasing decisions with their limited budget. Consumers always try to get their higher satisfaction. However, as they consume the same product, the extra satisfaction getting lower. That's we call it as low of diminishing marginal utility. Next, consumers also spend their money wisely by choosing the product that give the best value with their budget. For example, the chicken price getting increased suddenly, so many families will replace it with fish, tofu, eggs, and else because they offer affordable price. That's how consumers adjust their spending to get maximize satisfaction while staying within their budget. So, overall, understanding consumer behavior actually really helps consumers make better decisions and help businesses to understand what actually people need and market demand. So that's all from me. Thank you for your attention and listening. Bye.